Okay, let's unpack this with a relatable, if slightly uncomfortable truth. Your phone. It's everywhere, right? Practically glued to our hands.
Hmm.
Yet for so many of us, and yeah, even native English speakers, just making or even, answering a phone call can bring on this surprising wave of anxiety. Or maybe just dread.
It's really common.
Totally. Do you ever find yourself silently, like, hoping the person you're calling doesn't answer?
Uh-huh.
Or maybe your palms get a little sweaty when your phone rings? Even if it's just, I don't know, your mom. If that sounds familiar, well, you're definitely not alone.
Not at all.
And that's exactly why we're here today. Welcome to Daily English Practice Listen and Speak.
Great to be diving in.
Today, our deep dive is into one of the most essential and, yeah, often intimidating communication skills. English for phone conversations.
It really is essential.
Our mission really is to help you move beyond that apprehension. We want to equip you with the etiquette, the key phrases, and the practical strategies you need to speak confidently and effectively on the phone in English.
Yeah, and it's such a crucial step, not just for everyday stuff, but for professional communication, too.
Yeah.
And it's so important to acknowledge just how different phone calls feel. Unlike talking face-to-face, phone conversations just strip away all those visual cues.
Right. No body language, no facial expression.
Exactly. And that can make them feel really disorienting, quite challenging, actually. So mastering this skill isn't just about, sounding fluent. It's fundamental for building trust and projecting a strong professional image, really, no matter what the call is about.
That point about missing visual cues, it just hits home, doesn't it? So let's start there. Let's dig into why. Why can phone conversations feel so much more difficult than, say, sending a text or having a chat in person?
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered why the phone sometimes feels like this huge hurdle, even if you know the language pretty well?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really boils down to a few core psychological and communicative things. The first one, as you just said, is that absence of nonverbal cues.
Right.
As humans, we rely so heavily on body posture, facial expressions, gestures. All that stuff helps us understand intentions, feelings, kind of read between the lines.
Totally.
Phones, they take all of that away completely. So it makes it genuinely difficult to gauge what the other person is really thinking or feeling, or even if they're properly understanding you, it can be, well, profoundly disorienting.
I can absolutely relate to that. It does feel a bit like navigating a conversation blindfolded sometimes.
That's a good way to put it.
So what else makes them feel so high stakes?
Well, then you've got the high stakes, no edit button pressure, Unlike writing an email or a text.
Where you can tweak it forever.
Exactly. You can process the message, think through your response, edit it, delete it, start again. Phone calls demand immediate, right there on the spot thinking.
Yeah.
There's no delete button for spoken words. And that can create significant pressure, especially if it's an important call or maybe a difficult conversation. Every word feels like it carries, a risk.
It's that immediate, unrehearsed thing, isn't it? That feeling of being totally exposed.
Precisely. And that often leads straight into the fear of judgment.
Huh.
When you can't see the other person, any self-consciousness you have maybe about your voice, your accent, your ability to get your thoughts out clearly, it can just get amplified. A natural pause might suddenly feel like an eternity, and you start worrying, are they misinterpreting this? Are they judging how I sound?
And it's not just a general anxiety, is it? For English learners, these things can feel even bigger. We've seen comments online, Reddit threads where people specifically say understanding English over the phone is tough.
Exactly.
Because of that lack of visual cues and the pressure to respond fast. It really does compound the challenge when you're also navigating a language you're still learning.
It absolutely does. And there's another factor, too. Phone calls really demand your full presence.
Right. You can't really multitask effectively.
Not really. They require your undivided attention, active listening. If you're preoccupied, trying to do something else, it's so easy to miss important details.
Yeah.
And then if you have to keep asking for clarification, sorry, what was that? Could you repeat that? It might make the caller feel like you're not really listening or that their call isn't important.
Which ties into why texting feels safer, maybe.
Precisely. You can contrast all that with the perceived safety of texting. Texting lets you respond when you're ready, at your own pace. You can plan out exactly what you want to say, edit it, maybe even delete a draft and start over.
Total control.
Yeah, it gives you that sense of control and safety, which is especially appealing if you think the interaction might be difficult or awkward.
Okay, so we've kind of unpacked the why behind phone call difficulties. Now let's pivot. Let's move from those challenges to some concrete solutions. What are the foundational things we need to get right for effective phone calls in English?
Right, let's lay the groundwork. And that starts with some essential vocabulary, but maybe even more importantly, the foundational etiquette.
Okay.
Now, you can find comprehensive lists of terms, landline, mobile, ring, pickup, hang up in our show notes for reference. But maybe let's focus more on the actions and the principles that really make a difference.
I like that. The phone's just the tool.
Exactly. It's how you use it that counts.
So less about memorizing every single term because, let's face it, many listeners probably know the basics already and more about those underlying communication principles, especially the etiquette side.
Precisely. And this isn't just about being polite, though that's part of it. It's really about building trust and maintaining a strong professional image. Let's maybe group the key principles into three main pillars. How about clarity and courtesy, professional presence, and managing the flow?
Okay, I like that structure. Clarity and courtesy, professional presence, managing the flow. Let's start with clarity and courtesy.
Great. So under clarity and courtesy, the very first principle is prompt answering and immediate introduction. Ideally, try to answer within about 3 rings.
Okay, shows you're attentive.
Exactly. It signals attentiveness, respect for the caller's time. And then when you answer, immediately state your name and maybe your company or department, something clear like, "Good morning, this is Helen from Midtown Computer Solutions. How may I assist you today?"
Straight away, they know who they've reached. Builds trust.
Instantly. It's like opening the door and showing them they're in the right place and who they're talking to.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else under clarity and courtesy?
The next big one is speaking clearly and at a moderate pace. Articulate your words distinctly. Avoid mumbling. Try to maintain a balanced speed, not too fast, not too slow. And maybe adding brief pauses after important points. That can really help comprehension, especially if the other person is processing in a second language or if the connection isn't perfect.
Good tip. Okay, moving to the second pillar. Professional presence. What does that involve beyond just clarity?
A key element here is your tone. You want a warm, welcoming tone to make the caller feel comfortable, but also maintain that professionalism so the conversation stays focused. Try really hard not to sound bored or rushed, even if you are stressed or busy.
Because they can hear it in your voice.
Oh, absolutely. Your attitude comes through loud and clear. And here's that fascinating tip we touched on. Smile while talking.
Ah, yes, the secret weapon.
It really is. Even though they can't see you, a genuine smile actually physically influences your vocal tone. It makes you sound more positive, more approachable, more enthusiastic.
Wow.
It can honestly help de-escalate tension if you're in a difficult conversation. It's a bit of a game changer.
That's incredible. I'm definitely going to try that consciously next time. It's amazing how that subtle shift in vocal warmth could make such a difference. Okay, what about the third pillar? Managing the flow. The back and forth itself.
Right. So under managing the flow, first up is active listening. This is more than just hearing the words. You need to really focus on the caller's entire message, their concerns. Use little verbal cues like, "I understand," or "Okay, got it," just to signal that you're engaged.
Shows you're tracking with them.
Exactly. Second, try hard to avoid interrupting. Let the caller finish their thought. It shows respect, and importantly, it ensures you get the complete picture before you jump in. If you do need clarification, wait for a natural pause.
Makes sense.
And finally, if you need to put someone on hold, always ask permission first. Don't just do it. Say why, estimate the wait time. Just one moment while I pull up your file. It should take about 30 seconds. And if the hold goes longer, check back in.
Okay.
And always thank them for holding when you return to the call.
These feel much more like strategies for connection rather than just a list of rigid rules. I like
That's
it.
the idea.
So let's put this into action now. What do these concepts actually sound like in a real phone call? Can you give us some essential phrases for different scenarios, maybe highlighting formal versus informal where it's useful?
Absolutely. Think of these phrases as your toolkit for managing that conversation flow. We'll hit some key examples, but remember, there's a more extensive list in the show notes for you to explore and practice with later.
Perfect.
Okay, so for beginning a call, the main thing is immediate clarity. If you're receiving a formal call, you might answer, "Midtown Computer Solutions, Helen speaking. How can I help you?"
Clear and direct.
Right. If you're making a formal call, "Hello, this is your name from company name." Very standard. Informally, of course, it's much simpler. "Hi name," or "Hey name," it's your name.
Got it. And stating your purpose.
Good one. You might say, "I'm calling about," and then the topic, like the job opening, or "I'm calling to." followed by the action, like to register for the conference. Distinguishing between about and to can be useful there.
Okay. And what if the person you actually need to speak to isn't the one who answered? How do you ask for them?
Ah, yes. Formally, you'd use something like, may I speak with Mr. Jones, or can I speak with Sarah Chen, please? Informally, it's more like, is Peter there, or is Peter around, or just, can I talk to Peter?
And if you're the one answering and you need to connect them,
You might say, one moment, please, I'll put you through. Or simply, please hold, or I'll transfer you now. Sometimes, especially in offices, you might need to ask, may I ask who's calling, please, before transferring.
right, screening the call. Okay, what about when the person isn't available? Taking or leaving messages.
Yeah, common scenario. If someone's unavailable, you might explain briefly, I'm sorry, she's on another call right now, or he's actually in a meeting until 3 p.m., or simply, she's not available at the moment.
And offering to take a message.
Simple phrases like, would you like to leave a message? Or, can I take a message for him? Work well. If you're the caller and you want to leave one, you could say, yes, please, could you ask her to call me back? Or, please tell him the documents are ready.
And if you don't want to leave a message,
Just, no thanks, that's okay, I'll call back later. Perfectly fine.
good to know. What about clarifying information, making sure you got things right?
Super important on the phone. You could say, okay, let me just read that back to you to make sure I have it right. And especially for names or complex words, spelling is key. Could you spell your last name for me, please? And using those phonetic aids we mentioned is crucial here because you don't have the visual confirmation. Okay, so that's S as in September, M as in Mike, I as in India.
Yes. Those phonetic helpers are absolute lifesavers, especially if the connection isn't great or the name is unfamiliar.
They really are. And speaking of imperfect connections, handling difficulties or a bad line, what do you say?
Yeah, what do you say politely?
You could say something like, I'm sorry, there seems to be a lot of background noise. I can barely hear you. Or, you're breaking up a little bit. That phrase, breaking up, means the sound is cutting in and out.
Okay, breaking up. Good one.
Or simply, sorry, I didn't quite catch what you just said. If the call actually fails and you call back, you'd say, hi, it's your name again. Sorry about that. I think we got cut off. Cut off means the call disconnected unexpectedly.
Got cut off. Got it.
Uh,
What if you just need someone to wait for a moment while you look something up?
Formally, you could say, just bear with me a moment, please. Bear with me just means, please be patient. Or, just give me a moment, please. Informally, much quicker. Hang on a second, or hold on a sec.
Bear with me. That's a good formal one.
Yeah.
And finally, how do we wrap up the call smoothly?
Concluding calls, you can use signal phrases like, well, it was nice talking with you, or thanks so much for calling. Sometimes, especially in more informal chats that have gone on a while, you might say, anyway, I should probably let you go, or I should get going.
Gentle ways to signal the end.
Exactly. If you need to promise future contact, okay, great. I'll get in touch in a couple of days, or I'll call you back a little later this afternoon. And the final goodbyes. All right, talk to you soon. Bye. Or have a nice day.
And the standard response? You too. Bye.
Precisely. Informally, you might hear, okay, I've got to run, or I've got to go. That gotta is just got to.
Okay, that's a really comprehensive toolkit. It gives nice structure to different parts of the phone call, but, knowing the phrases is one thing.
Applying them with confidence is another.
Exactly. Especially when you're facing those specific challenges we talked about earlier, like anxiety or listening issues. So here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Let's talk about some targeted solutions for overcoming those common hurdles for English learners.
Yeah, let's get practical. For improving listening skills on the phone, which we know is a big pain point for many learners. One really interesting, slightly unusual suggestion I saw was to download podcasts, maybe like this one, and then use some simple audio software, maybe like Audacity, which is free, to deliberately reduce the audio quality.
Really? Make it sound worse?
Yeah, to kind of simulate those real phone call conditions, that slightly muffled or crackly sound. It forces your ears to work harder and adapt to less than perfect audio, just like on a real call.
That's clever. Kind of like training with weights on.
A bit like that, yeah. Another idea, maybe slightly controversial, is to listen to recordings of authentic prank phone calls, obviously not to make them yourself.
Right. just for listening practice.
Exactly. Because they often contain longer stretches of unscripted, natural back and forth dialogue that you have to follow.
Those are brilliantly unconventional tips. I love them. Okay, what about pronunciation barriers? We know how crucial clarity is when there are no visual cues.
Absolutely paramount. Clear articulation is just non-negotiable on the phone.
Mhm.
There was a study looking at English vowel pronunciation, specifically in phone contexts.
Oh, interesting.
And it highlighted how common vowel mispronunciations can really lead to significant misunderstandings. Things like the do sound in a word like caught, becoming more like the to sound in cot or car,
Okay.
or the long EI sound in sheep, sounding more like the short AE sound in ship or bed,
Okay.
or the long UU in pool, sounding like the U in pole or boat.
Wow, specific vowel sounds make that much difference.
They really can because the listener has only the sound to go on. They can't see your mouth shape or guess from context as easily. So really focusing on producing those distinct English vowel sounds clearly can dramatically improve how well you're understood over the phone.
That's incredibly specific and really actionable advice. Focus on those key vowel distinctions.
Hmm.
Okay, and finally, let's circle back to phone anxiety. It's just so widespread.
It really is.
I saw a study mentioning 76% of millennials experience it, 40% of baby boomers. And it seems to have gotten worse post-pandemic for many people, right? Less face-to-face practice making us feel more awkward.
That seems to be the case, yeah. Reduced social interaction can definitely make things like phone calls feel more daunting.
But the key thing is, this isn't some fixed personality trait, right? It's a skill. It can be developed. It can be managed.
Absolutely. It's not an inherent limitation. It's something you can definitely work on and improve.
So, what are some practical strategies for actually overcoming it?
Well, probably the most effective method, according to experts, is a form of exposure therapy, which basically means you just have to pick up the phone.
Rip off the Band-Aid?
Kind of, yeah. Start with really low stakes calls. Call friends, call family members you're comfortable with. The more frequently you actually do it, the more you engage with making and taking calls, the more your brain starts to realize, okay, this isn't actually dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And that anxiety level gradually, naturally reduces over time. Increased exposure really does lessen the fear.
That makes total sense. The more you do something, generally, the less scary it becomes.
Exactly. And remember our tip from earlier, the power of a smile.
Right. Smile when you dial.
Pretty much. Even though they can't see you, that physical act of smiling genuinely makes your voice sound warmer, more positive, more confident. It can actually make you feel a bit more confident, too.
Okay, another practical tip. Reward yourself.
Yes. Acknowledge that getting through a phone call, especially if it's one you are dreading, is an achievement. Celebrate that small victory. Do something nice for yourself afterwards. Create that positive reinforcement loop.
I like that. Positive reinforcement.
And another one, try not to overthink it. Yes, prepare if you need to, jot down some notes. But also try to embrace the fact that conversations are naturally a bit unpredictable. Don't spend ages afterwards analyzing every tiny pause or perceived inflection in their voice. Finish the call, let it go, move on.
Easier said than done sometimes, but good advice.
It takes practice. And finally, remember, you can leverage voicemail. It is perfectly okay to let a call go to voicemail if you're just not feeling ready to talk right then.
Right. Gives you breathing room.
Exactly. It allows you time to gather your thoughts, maybe prepare a little, and then call back when you feel more comfortable and composed. Voicemail is your friend.
Okay, that's a great set of strategies. So that really brings us towards the end of this pretty comprehensive deep dive, doesn't it?
It feels like we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we've gone all the way from understanding why phone calls can feel so uniquely challenging.
The lack of cues, the pressure.
Right. Then equipping you with essential vocabulary, those foundational etiquette principles, clarity and courtesy, professional presence, managing the flow.
Yeah, and the key phrases for different stages of the call.
Exactly, that toolkit of phrases. And finally, those really targeted strategies for overcoming specific hurdles like listening difficulties, getting pronunciation clearer, and tackling that common phone anxiety.
It really circles back to that core idea. Mastering call etiquette and phone skills in general isn't just about, answering the phone correctly in a technical sense.
Right.
It's fundamentally about ensuring clear communication happens. It's about building trust, and it's about maintaining professionalism or just connection during every single interaction. And it's definitely an ongoing skill, something that evolves with experience and, crucially, with practice.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener. Consider this the next time your phone rings, or the next time you find yourself needing to make a call. What's maybe just one small, intentional change you could make today, based on something we've unpacked in this deep dive?
Yeah, just one thing.
One thing that could instantly transform that interaction. Maybe moving it from a source of dread towards an opportunity for clearer connection, and maybe even some newfound confidence.
It's a great question to ponder. Remember, every single call really is a chance to practice and refine this vital communication skill. So how will you apply these insights, even just one of them, to your very next conversation?
Keep practicing, keep exploring these concepts, and you absolutely will get better and more confident with English for phone conversations. Keep diving deep into your own communication growth.